Hi, Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. It's Doug.
That's what's not for you.
Cynthia, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Killed me today. Oh.
Hey, good evening.
Hi, Sam.
Okay.
Cynthia and Katie, I have 6:30 now, so I'm going to start the webinar. We should see guests start to join us.
Thank you.
Cynthia and Katie, when you're ready to start, I just need to call roll.
No, luego cuando tú te fuiste, como a 10 minutos me fui. No, yo vivo donde están las bicicletas arriba. Donde las bicicletas. Sí.
I'm happy to defer to Cynthia about getting started.
We could start in about another minute or so, Jeremy. Give people some time to get on. Okay, Jeremy, we could begin. All our guests are here, and we have quite a robust number of attendees.
Okay. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
mute. No problem. I'm going to mute everybody. And committee members, we have two committees tonight, so I'm going to call the Public Safety Committee first. Committee members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself, and then I will acknowledge it. If you acknowledge it, I'll acknowledge you, and then we'll move on. I am going to, when I call the Transportation Committee, you may be called a second time because you might be part of both committees. Let's start with Cynthia Felix.
Present.
Thank you. Jerry Chan. Jerry Chan. Ramon Acevedo. Ramon Acevedo. Joan Body.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kin Fung. Kin Fung. John Garcia. John Garcia. Hector Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. Zachary Jacy. Zachary Jacy. John Johnston. John Johnston. Danielle Lai. Danielle Lai. Barbara Lee.
Present.
Thank you. Jimmy Lee. Jimmy Lee. Paul Mack. Paul Mack. Roberto Martinez.
Present.
Thank you. Gabino Morales.
Present.
Thank you. Samuel Sierra.
Present. Good evening.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the Transportation Committee. Let's start with Katie Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. John DeLuper.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra Alfonso.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Body.
Here.
Thank you. Joseph Canale.
Present.
Thank you. Jerry Chan. Jerry Chan. David Estrada. David Estrada. Diana Gonzalez.
Present.
Thank you. Zachary Jacy. Zachary Jacy. Roberto Martinez.
Present.
Thank you. Marilyn Melman. Marilyn Melman. Myra Molina. Myra Molina. Gabino Morales.
Present.
Thank you. Samuel Sierra.
Present.
Thank you. Cindy Vandenbosch.
Present.
Thank you. If you are a board member but not a committee member, I'm not calling your name, but I am going to write your name down. Roll has been called.
Thank you. I would like to thank Deputy Inspector Castro for joining us from the 7-2. Hi. As well as from Transit District 31 and 34. Welcome, captains. How are you today? I'm sorry, 30 and 34.
How are you?
Good. How are you? So we have quite a few items on the agenda today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the items and then give an opportunity for the attendees and the board to ask questions and share their concerns that they may have about it. And then we'll go into specific questions that we may have after. So the first thing on the agenda is quality of life concerns, including bikes, motorized scooters, visible drug use, and theft. So we'll start with the bikes and the motorized bikes and scooters on the sidewalks. That has been a big concern for us. I'm also going to add the bike lanes too, having the motorized bikes and scooters on the lane, but particularly in the sidewalk. We have talked about it many times. So if you guys could share the enforcement that has been going on with the bikes and the motorized scooters, that would be great. And I don't know who wants to start. Don't.
All right, as far as the 7-2 precinct, for the 28-day period, as you well know, the police department runs on a 28-day period. So for the period of October 10th to November 16th, we issued a total of 190 summonses. E-bikes were issued 70, motorcycles 105, and scooters 15. So that's what we've done in the 28-day period to combat motorcycle and moped issues in and around the 72nd precinct. As far as overall summonses for what we would call the BTL infraction, we've issued 601 summonses, 102 for red light, disobey traffic control 127, failed to yield to pedestrians 20, improper turn 7, texting 16, cell phone 15, and speeding 81.
Are there particular areas, D.I. Castro, where the tickets are being issued, or they're pretty much all over? Or is the particular corridor, 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, et cetera?
Exactly. The corridors for us is basically 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue are the primary corridors. But we do operations in and around the most collision prone locations within the command. So wherever we see the issues arising the most, especially the failure to yield, where we're taking accidents of pedestrians getting struck, that's where we would do most of our enforcement.
Great, thank you. Sam?
Hi, and thank you all for being here with us this evening. I heard the number of summonses and the reasons for these summonses, which is it's great, of course. But one thing that I did not hear, and I was wondering if that has surfaced, I didn't hear anything about vehicles. Let's say the motorized vehicles. Many of them have no license plates, motorcycles with no license plates, and pretty much every other one that I see on the avenue is riding without a license plate. Is that something that is, I guess, on the PD's radar, or are they aware of that? Because it is a large concern, and I just wanted to share that if it perhaps missed at some point. Thank you.
So the VTL regulations are very strict. When it comes to e-bikes, they are not required to have license plates. Bikes are not required to have license plates. Motorized vehicles like mopeds, they are. Whenever we confront one, we immediately issue a summons and we take the bike. The person has a right to come to the precinct upon either paying the fine or fighting the summons and pick up their bike. Should have a registration inspection on the moped or motorized vehicle. If they don't, they can still take it as long as they have a tow truck here present. As a matter of fact, Marathon Sunday, I was out and about the streets of the 72nd Precinct on 4th Avenue. I saw an individual with a motorized moped crossing the Marathon path, which was not a valid crossing for mopeds. I stopped him myself. Upon checking the motorcycle or the moped, it came back stolen, so he was arrested for criminal possession of stolen property. But the initial stop was because he didn't have a license plate on a motorized, and when I say motorized, engine, gas-driven moped, and he was arrested for criminal possession of stolen property. That moped was stolen out of the 34th Precinct, which is Upper Manhattan and Washington Heights. So when we talk about enforcement, I'm even involved in that enforcement. But it's an uphill battle as everything, right? Education is one of the premier things, because everybody believes that because e-bikes are not mandated to have license plates, then at the same hand, a lot of these motorized motorcycles that run on gas are not required to have a license plate.
And thank you for that. It's just it's a big problem. I'm sure you're aware, and I'm preaching to the choir. But thank you so very much.
Thank you, Sam. Jeremy, do you want me to just go call hands up? I don't mind.
It's entirely up to you.
Okay, if you could do it, that'd be great.
No problem. So I have Barbara Lee next.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? This question's for Deputy Inspector Castro. There's a big problem with bicycles on the sidewalk, especially, I'm not talking about children, I'm talking about adults. And they're becoming really brazen about it too. So are you going after bicycles? Just regular bicycles? I mean, I live on 4th Avenue and they have a path there, but they're still on the sidewalk.
Anytime my officers see anyone on a sidewalk, there's different ways of handling it. It's not always enforcement, especially bicycles, and depending on the situation. I'm quite sure they are enforcing it. I will touch base with my traffic sergeant and my captain, who's my executive officer and handles my traffic program. I don't have any numbers here as far as bicycles themselves, but I'll follow up with that complaint and I'll let them know that they should be addressing it more aggressively.
Thank you.
I have Katie Walsh next. Katie, you are a co-chair, so you really don't have to raise your hand. You can
Okay.
jump in at any time.
As a courtesy, but thank you. So I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee, and we're hosting this meeting together. I just want to frame up before, we're going through this entire agenda, but transportation is, and the link to public safety is one of our number one issues in this community that we're dealing with. And so there needs to be as much transparency around the data that you're also providing and talking about today. So I want to, for the first question I have for you is, do we have a regular way every month where you're citing from October to November? How do we receive that information every month in a regular fashion around, you just cited a bunch of different, traffic infringements and enforcement. How is that being given to the community board every month?
Well, that information can be taken from the NewYorkCity.gov website /NYPD, just like the CompStat numbers. The traffic numbers are available for each command. So that's something that if you wanted to look up at any time, you can go on our website and actually pull up the 72nd precinct's traffic enforcement, traffic collisions for any given period that you're seeking. But every month we go to a community council meeting and we give out those numbers. And we speak about traffic and we allow the community to ask questions regarding traffic. So whether it's at our build-a-block meetings, our community council meetings, or if you would like to pull up the information yourself, it's always available. It's very transparent. The NYPD is very transparent.
So when is your next community council meeting?
Community council meeting is every Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month at 19:30 hours. Our community council president is on, so she could give you any more information if you need so.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone who's on the line can hear about this opportunity, and then these meetings are open to the public and anyone from the community can participate. One of the things that I just wanted to flag that relates to this first agenda item, which is us staying on motorized scooters and talking about bike lanes, is the regular blockage of the bike lane. And so that also puts bikers on the sidewalk, and that puts bikers in the actual lane of traffic. Department of Transportation has flagged to us specifically that this is an enforcement issue with NYPD, not following up on 311 complaints or not fulfilling the enforcement. And of note, I have also seen this in front of the 72nd Precinct's own facilities, as well as the FDNY that's on 53rd Street, blocking the bike lane with private, police vehicles, and FDNY. So this is sort of a two-part question, which is the ask is for you all to lead by example and not block bike lanes and not park on sidewalks. And the second is, what are you doing around enforcement of cars that are specifically parked in bike lanes, again, which is something the Department of Transportation has said to us is has to be fulfilled by NYPD.
So just to clarify, because those are definite statements, when it comes to bike lane, the 72nd precinct does not, unless you have evidence by pictures, are not authorized to park on the bike lane. And in the time I've been here, 2 years and 6 months, and every time I've come in, I've never seen that. As far as the vehicles on the sidewalk, that is something that my officers are well aware of, that they are not supposed to be on the sidewalk. There are times when we're bringing prisoners in that we do bring the car up to the sidewalk, but we immediately take it off the sidewalk in order to get the prisoner in a safe manner, so that there won't be no interference with any bicyclist or any motorist coming down the lane. As far as the fire department, that was brought up at the last community council meeting, which again, I invite everyone to participate in and to be part of, because we do look at it, the council likes the attendance, and these are the places where we ask those questions. I have brought it up to the person in charge, the chief at the firehouse, and he has pretty much communicated that he will do his best to ensure that his firefighters are not on the bike lane or on the sidewalk, and that's an ongoing conversation with them. And I will have them come to our next community council meeting. I will invite them, and you can ask that question to them directly, since they will be there if I ask them to be present.
And sorry, the last part, because it was two parts, is just around the enforcement for 311, specifically around, because the first agenda item is meant to be around vehicles. And so just understanding your response to 311 issues.
So based on 311 issues, anytime we have a 311 call for an illegal parked vehicle, if we get there, the expectation is that if that person there's not an exception, right? So we'll get a fire hydrant. If we get there and there's a handicapped person or a person with a child attempting to get their family member in the vehicle, we use education. We advise them that is not the right place to park their vehicle, to try to find a more legal spot to park it. If not, summonses have been issued based off of the 311 calls that we've seen. And again, the discretion is given to the police officer based on what they're seeing at the time when they arrive to that 311 call. If we get there and the vehicle's not there, we cannot issue a summons by law. We cannot issue a summons.
Might come back, but Jeremy, I'll let you keep going through the other list. There's a couple other things to go through. Thanks.
Sure, I have Joan Body next.
Thank you for always coming to us, but I have two issues. The first one is we have the same problem up here in the terrace with bicycles on the sidewalk and scooters on the sidewalk. My other issue is, could you elaborate a little bit on how it works with police patrolling the subway stations? I had the opportunity today, I'll say an opportunity, to take the subway. And whenever I have to take the subway, I never, ever see any police patrolling our subway stations. And particularly our subway station up here on Prospect Park. That's the 15th Street Prospect Park station. I'm also sure if they're not up here, they're also not on Hamilton Avenue either. Could you explain how that works?
Hi, how are you? It's Captain Abriano. I'm the XO of Transit District 30. So we cover Prospect Park and 15th Street. So District 30 covers 9 precincts. That's 33 stations. In the confines of the 7-2 precinct, we only cover 2 out of those 33. One being Prospect Park. So for the 28-day period, we did take 1 crime at Prospect Park. There was a grand larceny there. And we also cover Fort Hamilton Parkway, which we haven't taken a crime there in 28 days. So the majority of our deployment, we do have officers there running the F train, doing train patrols. At Prospect Park, we do have 77 station inspections done by police in 28 days, which is really good. In regards to our enforcement, our overall enforcement regarding summonses, whether it be theft of service or quality of life, we have for the 28-day period, we have 357 summonses issued. So we're up 134.9%. Also in arrests for the 28 days, we have 53 arrests total, and that compared to last year are up 211.8%. So we are definitely concentrating. We're doing very well. Also regarding the 311s, I heard that mentioned before. We only had 1 311 call at each of those stations in the confines of the 7-2. So we're out there, and we're going to continue to be out there. Anything you want to point out, that you want me to look at, I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Captain.
Welcome.
I have Cynthia Gonzalez next.
Yes, good evening and thank you for coming. I understand that the e-bikes don't require any plates or whatever, but do all of these motorized vehicles require that people wear a helmet the way regular bikers do? Because I rarely see that unless it's a delivery driver, you know, private citizens. I've seen children with their parents on these bikes and they don't have any headgear.
Less than 14, they are required to wear a helmet at all times. But above 14 years of age, they are not because an e-bike is considered a bicycle. It's the same as a bicycle. If we do see a child less than 14 with a parent, we issue the summons to the parent. We don't issue it to the child. So that's the enforcement as far as the helmets. We do request that everyone wear a helmet. It's a safety issue. But at this time, the enforceability of a helmet on an e-bike is a child less than 14 years of age.
Also a regular bike, correct?
Yes. Same
So
thing.
Cynthia, there's no helmet law for any bicycle over 14.
Thank you.
I have Diana Gonzalez next.
Yeah, I had a clarifying question based on the question Katie asked earlier about cars being parked in bicycle lanes. If I heard you correctly, you said that if no person showed up to claim the car, you couldn't issue a summons. Does that mean that you're not doing anything about it at all? You're just letting the car stay in the bike lane?
I did not say that.
Okay, can you clarify?
We just issue the summons, and we'll call Department Tow, which is the traffic towing unit for the NYPD. So move.
Okay, thank you.
John DeLuper is next.
All right. Thank you. Inspector Castro, I wanted to follow up with one of the questions related to the bicycles and the e-bikes and all that stuff. I can't remember if it was you or if it was Captain Chan at whether the last meeting or a few meetings ago, mentioned that there were the different classes of e-bikes and that some of them, the scooters, the e-bikes, and the mopeds are all different vehicles. He shared a chart. I think it's this one I just put into the panel. And there was also discussion that you guys do the enforcement on the street, but there's also supposed to be some kind of enforcement or coordination, maybe with DCWP, about getting the stores to, to hand out educational materials, to get these things, like to make sure that they were the ones who needed licenses and helmets and all that were informing the people at the point of sale. Do you know if that's still happening, or maybe I'm remembering the details wrong? Do you have any other details you can supply on that area?
So Captain Chen retired. So it's Captain Sang now. He's the actually traffic executive that handles the traffic program for the 7-2. As far as DCWEP, which is the Department of Consumer Affairs, what we're working on and what we've been working on with them is more towards educating the street vendors, which has been a constant complaint of the community itself. But we also look to do education by going to the bicycle stores and letting them know that, just like any other safety issue or just like any registration requirement, that they need to inform any customer, any viable customer of the laws of New York City and New York State regarding, the operations of these bikes themselves. But it's very integral as far as the e-bikes also. A lot of it has to do with the weight of the bike, right? Pedal assist versus regular e-bike. So there's a lot of intricacies when it comes to the e-bikes themselves.
gonna take kind of chair's privilege for a second just to jump in. So I checked in on several point of sale scooters and stores on 5th Avenue, 4th Avenue, and 3rd Avenue. No information is provided to those stores. Are you saying that, just to clarify, the 72nd NYPD is accountable for handing information out? Who is accountable for giving that information out? Because none of the stores surveyed have received anything.
Well, it's Department of Consumer Affairs who gives out any type of information regarding the sales of any goods. And we may assist them at any given time when we do operations with them. This is collaborative between us and other city agencies as well as the community. The community brings something up, we work together. We all have to work together. This is a,
Totally. When I spoke with them, they said the stores said that they would be happy to put something out if things are handed out in English, Spanish, and Chinese, but they hadn't been approached and no one had given anything out. So you're saying that that is the Department of Consumer Affairs that's responsible for providing that information?
That information can be provided by them or provided by us if they request it. If anyone requested, including DOT, Department of Transportation, can also give that information out. So it's a collaborative effort.
Okay,
perhaps, I'm sorry, if we have a list of the stores, perhaps you could share them with the 7 too, because I know on 8th Avenue, those stores, a lot of them do have flyers. And unfortunately, it was a result of the fires that happened, right? And we want to avoid that too, because the e-bikes have the batteries, the lithium batteries that have caused several big fires in the community. So I know on 8th Avenue, I've seen them actively give out information, but not so much on this side. So maybe if we could give a list of stores, they could work with us and give them instead of waiting for Department of Consumers Affairs, because Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, they take quite a bit of time to get here.
Well, they're now called DCWP, Consumer and Worker Protection.
Right.
So they are still understaffed, and I am not aware of them doing local inspections.
Okay, so just to be on this point though, so we need like hundreds of flyers in multiple languages given out. So will that come just as like to have a clear point of action as a point of follow-up to make this a real thing? So do you have those available? Are they something that can be picked up and distributed?
We can request them from Consumer Affairs, and I would invite you to be part of our outreach. If you want to do an outreach with the 72nd Precinct as the Chair of Transportation, you're more than welcome to walk the streets with us, and we'll go to every store that needs those flyers in whatever language they have them. But I will request it from them. I will also check with our traffic bureau here to see if they have those flyers available.
Okay, so we'll just have that as a follow-up, Cynthia, to your point, the list of stores for one, and then two, actually getting the flyers and having their requests be prepared to go out. Thank you.
Great.
I have Barbara Lee next.
Hi again. So on the flip side, there's a problem with stores still with their trucks blocking the bike paths. I always walk past to Seatown that's on 25th and 4th Avenue. And a lot of kids ride with their parents on bikes, and they have to go into the street because the delivery trucks are always blocking the lanes.
So I will direct my officers to go to that area, but I've seen, is that by 25th and 4th by the train station over there?
Yes, exactly, right there.
I think we have to put in what we would call a traffic intelligence report to get that repainted, because it is a little bit confusing because there's a gray area and then there's the green area, which is the bike lane, and there's really no area for a vehicle to make deliveries at that location, because I've confronted that when I've gone there to inspect my transit posts.
Right.
Where I see vehicles on the bike lane, and I've educated them, and they are, do we park on the roadway lane? And I said, yes, it's better if you park on the roadway lane than on the bike lane. And then they've also pointed at some safety issues for them when they're offloading the merchandise into Seatown. But I think we need to put a traffic intelligence report in for DOT to come out and possibly repaint that area and redesignate it a little bit clearer for the vehicles.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for bringing that up.
I have Cindy Vandenbosch next.
Hi, thank you so much for coming this evening. I live up in the Windsor Terrace part of the district, and then I also sometimes work in Prospect Park, and I do see motorcycles and larger mopeds in bike lanes. And I wanted to know, in terms of like ticketing, whether you've been monitoring the bike lanes and seeing that as well in terms of the summons that have been issued. Yeah, so I'm just curious about these vehicles that shouldn't be in bike lanes, and whether your officers are also seeing that on, like, I know on Fort Hamilton Parkway, I've seen it quite a bit, as well as down on 4th Avenue.
So one thing that I have seen on 4th Avenue is a larger e-bike than the regular conventional e-bike. And it happened to be that on one day I saw one that looked like a motorcycle. I stopped it. It was in fact an e-bike. It was not a motorcycle. So it could be on 4th Avenue. I have not seen, other than the mopeds, the smaller gas bikes being on the bike lane, I have not seen a full-blown motorcycle from the times I've been out on the street, on and about. But again, I'll have my traffic safety officers take a look at it. If that's the issue as far as motorcycles themselves, again, they're manufacturing these bikes to look like motorcycles, but they're actually e-bikes. And I've been fooled quite some time, plenty of times when I've seen them and I'm like, oh, is this a motor? And they're like, no, it's an e-bike. And in fact, it is an e-bike. So we're seeing that more and more, that they're changing the dynamics of the e-bike itself. And it could be confusing to that point. So we have to treat it as an investigation before we can treat it as an enforcement, to make sure that we're actually issuing the summons to the right person.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That's really helpful. And are you able to monitor, like using radar, the speed of vehicles that are in the bike lanes?
At this time, the only radar we have is for motorized. So vehicles, motorcycles that are fully motorized by gas. E-bikes, no, we don't have any type of radar at this time. I mean, it could be in the works, but we don't have anything that can actually pinpoint that, because it runs on electric. It's not a motorized vehicle.
So it is the issue that the technology just doesn't exist? It's not like a regulation kind of issue?
They are supposed to go, I believe, a maximum of 35 miles an hour. E-bikes themselves, as not as the street maximum, but as a motorized vehicle maximum. I mean, as an e-bike maximum. But they are supposed to stay within the 25 mile an hour regulation. So we don't have a speed camera that actually can hit the electric bikes at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
I have Gabino Morales next.
Hi, yes, thank you. Good evening, Community Board 7. Thank you, 72nd Precinct, for taking this meeting with us. Chairman, Chairwoman, thank you for hosting this joint meeting. I would just like to inform everyone that in the Finance Committee that we recently had, there was a motion to table an item regarding more NYPD cameras that would have been useful to keep our community more safe. I understand the concerns to why this item was tabled and not added to the next funding for more cameras. The concern was privacy, which is clearly understandable. And I would just like to know, so people are in clarification of what the existence of the cameras are and how are they used. If the deputy inspector can answer my question, and what streets have cameras and what streets need cameras. We know there has been crimes that continue to be committed, and the local community board and committees of public transportation and public safety and public transportation, it is in our hands to provide our local precinct with all the resources that they need to do their jobs effectively. We understand that it's not easy to convince the community about these cameras, but I would just like those questions to be answered, like how are these cameras used, what streets need cameras, and what is their purpose? Thank you.
Well, as far as the NYPD cameras, they're called the Argus cameras. Most of them are on Fifth Avenue. We have a few on Fourth and a few on Sixth Avenue. We don't have too many outside that area. We have here and there. They're normally used for crime investigations. They are not. We don't use them as a surveillance tool. So the times that we've used them have been that a crime was committed and we needed to gather evidence of that crime to possibly make an arrest. As far as areas that need camera, I would say there are many avenues. Third Avenue, where we've taken some crimes on 58th and 3rd in that area, 58th and 3rd, 59th and 3rd. It would be a great help for that purpose. 7th Avenue, 8th Avenue, we've been asked by community members as to what's the process to put cameras there. So it's not even the NYPD asking for it, it's the community members asking for it. So, you know, in most areas where we take crime, that's where it would help out the most. Most of our community members feel more secure with those cameras available and visible. And we also think it's a deterrent to the criminals because if they see a camera, we hope that they, you know, deter themselves from committing the crime because the camera could capture it and lead to their arrest.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm absolute agreement with you. And I would just like to say that thank you, Chairman and Chairwoman, for having this joint meeting with public transportation and public safety, because we need to get to the bottom of who is responsible for enacting these cameras. Because I know they keep tossing the ball around, saying, you know, we can't add this here, can't add that there. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
I have Diana Gonzalez next.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on something you said about not having the ability to monitor speeds in bike lanes with radar. Were you referring to all forms of radar technology or just the standing cameras?
Ma'am, the radar guns that we have presently at the NYPD are not equipped, according to my traffic safety officers, because I've asked that question in the past, to hit on a radar on an e-bike itself. On a motorized vehicle, yes, which we utilize on Third Avenue predominantly, because we've seen that it's a high collision area, and it's also an area where speed is an issue based on our traffic collisions.
Okay, thank you.
Katie Walsh is next.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. So there was a couple of comments that have been made about 311, and this is particularly around issues related to blocking of lanes and challenges related to general traffic enforcement, but we're still on this first agenda item. But so this touches on the topic, but it's about 311 more generally. We have this issue in our district where folks call in 311, and some of these are on this topic, and it's closed within 5 minutes and reported out that it's been investigated and there's no change. I know, in fact, like there's been hearings. This has been an issue throughout, not just 72nd. This is an issue throughout the city. I just wanted to hear your level of confidence that there is the transparency and accountability and credibility of the 72nd addressing 311 complaints. I will talk later about other community concerns around semi-trailers, tractor trailers, illegal parking, illegal parking, and how those get called in. But right now, I mean, to touch on that topic, I wanted to get your perspective on what's happening with 311 in our district and addressing that.
I would tell you that 311s should and are handled like a 911 call. I'm looking right now at response time. Average time is 55 minutes to a 311 call, which we're giving priority and we handle it in the same manner. If there's one or two calls, or if there's anything you can pinpoint, because to say that most are being closed out in 5 minutes, I would rather you give me the 311 numbers so that we can investigate. If it was closed in 5 minutes, but it was properly answered and officers responded and closed it within that time frame because it was properly handled, then we're fine with it. If it was not properly handled, if we did not respond to that location and it was not taken care in a proper manner, then there is an investigation that needs to be done, and the proper steps will be taken to correct the issue. But overall, I have confidence in my officers, and my desk officers oversee, which are sergeants and above, sergeants and lieutenants, oversee the 311 system and direct our officers to give out the jobs to whatever sector or response order or NCO should handle it, or we refer it to whatever agency has to handle it, because not every 311 call is handled by the NYPD. We do referrals depending on what the call is about. But I'm very confident that my officers are doing their job each and every day out there.
Steps that we advise to the community is to call 311, to get the log number, to send it to the community board, and I'll put the email in here just to forward it to make the community board aware. And then you're saying you're adding this additional step, which is that if it's closed and nothing is, changed, there's a step. How does that information make it to you guys to even know, like, this is what we're hearing? And we raised this. This was John Deliver was talking about this issue last year with the previous, basically a year ago, we had this meeting, we raised this issue. How do we close that loop, right? Because all we're hearing is it's not being addressed. So people get the 311, it closes, they send it to community board, so the community board's aware. But how do we close the loop between what you're saying now, right? Where the opportunity is for you guys to say, yes, we've addressed it, it's credible, blah, 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 or no, we didn't, there's a problem. Where does that happen?
So again, it could be reported to the precinct, to the local precinct, as a complaint that we are not handling the job, or even to 311, and we would get it as what we would call a case to investigate that case. I've had a couple of instances where community members have brought up to my attention the lack of response from the officers, and when we've done our investigation, the officers have responded, have handled the job in a proper way. But there's been a miscommunication between the person calling or the fact that they're putting anonymous and they're not leaving a phone number. So therefore, we need additional information. When someone calls 311 and puts anonymous and leaves no phone number, you're basically leaving the job open for us to figure out, okay, what is actually, or what are we actually looking at? Where's the complaint? Where's it coming from? And if it's a visible item like a vehicle parked on a hydrant, that's an easy one. But if it's a noise complaint from apartment 4A and we enter that building and 4A has no music going on, or the music is very low to our standards, right? We can only ask the person to lower it down because we are getting complaints. Where there is a phone number and a person's name, we can verify that call a little bit more in detail and address it even more in detail if need be, based on our conversation or face-to-face conversation with that person, or over the phone with the person making the complaint. But if it doesn't get answered, or if you believe it doesn't get answered, you can report it to the NYPD at any time. And we will do a full investigation to ensure that these calls are being answered in the proper manner. There is an issue with multiple calls. So we get 5 or 6 calls to the same location. We will generally go there once, unless those other calls come after the call. If we look at the call, so all the calls come in, there's 5 calls come in, we handle them at once, they all get closed out at once. So if you made the last call and it happened within 5 minutes of us getting there, we will handle that call and we will close out your call, because we've already handled the other 4 previous calls, right? Which are to the same location. But by any means, if there is an issue with one, by all means, file a complaint and we will look into it.
Okay, and so I'm just going to repeat this back. So 311, send it to the community board. We'll put the email there. And then the next step that you would want, if it's not addressed or it says it's closed within 5 minutes, nothing changes. You would like the next step to be to file a complaint with is it an email? Can you just provide us with the information of where people are supposed to send that to?
So it can either be done to 311. If it is something that is to the point where it's egregious, and you can always call CCRB. They will direct it, or if you want to take it to the precinct level, we can direct it here at the precinct level. It can be sent, the email can be sent to PCT 072. I'm sorry, I don't use it that often myself, but it's you know what? I just want to make sure I have the right one because I use my personal one, but I'm going to get the right one and I'm going to post it in the chat for you guys.
Yeah, it would be, part of this is also information gathering for our community. So when we're talking about, pointing folks in the direction of a 311 and logging it and then not seeing a change, again, may or may not be investigated, whatever the situation is. But understanding where that closed loop is, we raise this with Department of Transportation, but they always send us back. And I'm not talking about noise or anything. We're literally just talking about these like traffic transportation issues. And right now we were talking about, bikes and mopeds. And so I was focused on that, but I was talking about this issue. So I think if you guys, happy for you to send us an email. I hope someone checks the email so, give us an email if someone's checking the email. And then, to the point that it then gets escalated to this civilian board. That's a pretty aggressive next step if that's what you all are saying that we should do. But just, yeah.
If you feel that it's that egregious, you have a right to file a complaint. If you feel that's that egregious, if you feel that, hey, I like the precinct, I just posted the email. I like the precinct to look into this and get back to me. We always get back. This is my desk, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If there's anything to the effect of a complaint regarding, hey, no one ever came to the 311 job, you can send it to that. No problem. We work with the highest integrity and work ethic. Everyone in this department is expected to work with that work ethic. So there is no, hey, we should be doing it this way or that way. It's done based on policy and procedure.
Okay,
Also,
thank
can
you. If you could just share the email for everyone, and then Cynthia, back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to interject that the last meeting that Deputy Inspector Castro joined us, we provided all the information for all the NCOs. It was attached to the first September meeting that the community board had. There was a list of every NCO with the phone number, as well as the email addresses, as well as information for CCRB, because we actually did a joint meeting with Deputy Inspector Castro and CCRB that asks, what do we do if we feel we're not satisfied with something that happened? So that information was shared previously, and it was also part of the minutes that Jeremy and the community board put out as part of the last public safety meeting that took place. I believe it was in July, but we could resend that. I'll make sure I attach it to these minutes again, so that when we send it out, it'll be there, because you could also reach out to NCO officers as well.
Cynthia, I've run out of panelists with their hands up. May I start calling attendees?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Let's start with Adam White. Adam, you can unmute yourself now. Adam White, you can unmute yourself. Ask him to unmute.
Sorry.
There you are.
Hi, hello, Community Board 7 and Deputy Inspector. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My concern is about defaced plates, which is becoming a growing problem. I see it all along 4th Avenue, actually throughout Park Slope. I live in Windsor Terrace. I see it in my neighborhood. I see it on Prospect Park West. In fact, the other end, I've called 311 numerous times to report. I see the same vehicles over and over again with obfuscated plates, either with covers or other things that cover the plates so that they won't get picked up by speed cameras or red light cameras, or if there's a hit and run situation, that these vehicles can't be identified. I'm a safe streets advocate for many years. I represent injured people who have been devastated by car crashes, and the growing devastation of hit and run situations. And my concern is, the other day, I actually took it upon myself to remove a plastic cover from, it wasn't a cover, it was a piece of plastic that obfuscated a license plate. The driver gets out of the car and he says, "I'm going to call the police. What are you doing?" I said, "What are you doing? You're covering the plate." This was not the 72nd precinct. This was the 78th precinct. Called the police. I explained clearly what I did. I said, this guy had a piece of plastic over the plate. And I said, that's all I removed. I removed it. I handed it to him. He has it. I didn't do any damage, but this is a significant problem. And I proceeded to get arrested. And I'm being charged with criminal mischief. Now, this is not about me. Whoa, pity me. But my question to you, Inspector Gonzalez, at the 72nd precinct, because I want to take this up with the 78th precinct, is what's going on? Like, why? And I'll also let you know that I do see, unfortunately, a lot of city employees. A lot of these vehicles are city employees. They're NYPD, they're FDNY, they're HR department, they're EMTs with deliberately, intentionally defaced and covered plates. This is a growing epidemic, and I'm wondering, are you guys aware of this? Are you guys taking any actions whatsoever with respect to this? Do you consider it to be a problem?
Oh, Mr. White, plate covering for New York State residents is against the law. Anytime we see we see plate coverings, we basically should be issuing summonses for plate covers or requesting that those individuals who have them take them off. What you did, in fact, we don't advise anyone to do, because that is people's personal property. If there is an issue with plate covers, I would say just put it into 311. If they're parked and they have a plate cover, we will go there. If we find it to be illegal in itself, we will issue the summons, or we will ask the person to take the plate cover off. But I do agree that, plate covers should not be on vehicles. If you see any, as you say, any NYPD employees with plate covers that are parked, you can report it to 311, and we will definitely look into it. And that's one of our audit items in this command and in many other commands, is that we do any vehicle parked in our area, which is our parking lot. Our integrity control officer goes out and inspects for plate covers or any defaced plates. I do have to tell you that New York State has put that out, stating that the plates are still legal as long as you can read the numbers, because it's a manufacturing issue. It's not a person defacing their own plate. If we do catch somebody defacing the plate on their own, that's a crime in itself. But a lot of these plates have issues as far as the adhesiveness or the way they were made, that makes it an issue in itself.
It's interesting. I just want to add on to this, because what I'm not hearing at all, really, first of all, I've done 311 numerous times, been completely unsuccessful, as other people have pointed out. The cases get closed, nothing gets done. And even the day I got arrested, they proceed. I said, well, at least you're going to give this guy summons, right? And they said, no, we didn't observe it. And I showed them the photographs of it. My concern, what you're saying is, if the NYPD doesn't see someone actively defacing the plates, there's nothing you can do. If you can read it up close, because remember, what they're doing is they're evading speed cameras and red light cameras from above and from the sides. And a lot of what these folks are doing, there's a host of ways folks are doing it. They're blurring from the side. They're covering it in ways that you can't see it from any angle. So what you're saying right now as well, if we, the police officers, show up at the scene and we can read the plate, now I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I don't want to be disrespectful, But what I'm hearing is if you don't see them actively doing it, and if you can read the plate, then they get a pass. And that really concerns me if that's what you're saying.
Sir, my 78-year-old aunt had a deep-face plate, which she never tampered with. How are we supposed to take action on someone who we're not visibly seeing committing the infraction, which is a violation? How are we supposed to take action without seeing them purposely doing it? And we all know that New York State has already stated that they had an issue with the manufacturing of plates and the fact that the adhesiveness on the plate. If we see someone defacing or obstructing their plate purposely, we can take action. That's just how the law works. We cannot violate the law ourselves if we are here to uphold the law. So if we see someone doing it purposely, then we can take enforcement action. But who's to say that someone is doing it intentionally versus it just happened because of the manufacturing issue?
I have George Cardona next.
And Jeremy, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for the interest of time. It's 7:30 and we're still on item 1. So I'm going to ask everyone to please limit themselves to 2 minutes so that we could get through all the items. If not, we will be here all night. Thank you.
Sorry, George. Oh, sorry, George Cardona, you can unmute yourself now.
Hello, everybody. So I'll make it quickly. Maybe what the cops could do is address the cars when they see them with the plates, tapered over and all that. To the gentleman who just spoke before me, just be careful confronting people. You don't know who you're going to confront. And that's coming from a guy who I may be a hypocrite because I have a sign in front of my office saying, bikes, stay off the road. I've had issues with people kicking the sign. I go out there. With Katie's point with 311, can we maybe meet somebody from 311? Because usually when I call 311, I take a picture, I put my name and all that. So they say they know who it is. And sometimes the cases get closed. But maybe we can meet somebody from 311. Regarding Cindy with the speed and the radar, I've actually driven in my car going 30, 35, and those e-bikes pass me. So I know they're going a lot faster. The other issue I want to know is, are there any political people on this website, let's say from the state side, the state assembly, the state senator, the city councilman? There are some people like the city councilman that does talk to us, and I appreciate that. But we got political leaders that never get involved, and that's a political issue for later on to vote them out. But maybe they can help us with camera funding, state funding, and all that, because we can't dump it all on the police. We all got to be involved. And I'm one, and people that know me, I speak up when I see things. And to the gentleman again before me, just be careful confronting. You don't know who the jerk is going to be. And I wouldn't want anybody with concerned ideas to get hurt. And that's, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
I have Carrie Blakely next. Carrie, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I did unmute, but so first of all, I just want to say I'm really shocked. My mouth is hanging open that you arrested this man for trying to do a good deed. Meanwhile, these e-bikes, motorcycles, whatever they are that could kill somebody here in Ocean Parkway and Caton Avenue, I don't know if that's precinct you're with, but it is a real problem over here. I've never seen any summonses. I've never seen any enforcement. And yet you've said that you can use your judgment. And if, you're not going to give a ticket to maybe somebody who's double parked and is trying to, get an old person or a child in the car, but you didn't use your judgment with this. And this man was arrested for criminal mischief. This is what the NYPD is doing. This is what the NYPD is concerned about. I'm shocked and appalled.
So to clarify, Kiri, it wasn't this precinct that did it. Adam said it happened at the 7-8. So we have the 7-2 with us tonight.
Oh, okay.
And Adam said this happened with a totally different precinct. The
Well,
7-8,
anyway, I'm
that's
just
not here,
venting.
but I do agree with you. I know, I agree with you. And so I agree.
Okay, I'll move on. But Adam, if you need me to yell at somebody, please let me know. So again, this may not be the right precinct, but there is a cop car that is constantly, it seems perpetually parked across the lake in Prospect Park Southwest. There's a little driveway there. I would love to know what that car does. There are e-bikes, motorcycles, motorbikes going in and out of the park all the time, right by that car. And why is that guy parked there? I've never seen him do anything about it. These e-bikes go on the wrong, go around the wrong direction of the loop. It's very dangerous. And who is this person? I'd love to know. Like, what is their job? I want their job. I really do.
So, Ms. Blakely?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Inspector Castro. That's actually the 78th precinct. I would have to see, what's the purpose of that post there. But you're free to contact the 78th precinct. They'll be able to tell you what's the purpose. I believe that every time we deploy our personnel or put some type of deterrent, which would be a vehicle, it should be, first of all, parked legally. So if it's not parked legally, that's an issue in itself. But it's usually, sometimes we do use that tactic of putting a vehicle in a certain place to deter any type of crime, because criminals are looking, hey, are the police here? If they're here, we're not going to commit a crime here. But I would definitely get with Captain Souffrant, who is the commanding officer of 7A precinct, and we can get back. I'll get back to Cynthia about your concern, and he can explain to you his deployment.
That would be great. I mean, it's certainly not deterring these e-bikes that are not, supposed to be in the park at all.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Cynthia, I've run out of attendees with their hands up. I see we have a panelist with their hand up again.
Diana?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a clarifying answer on this issue of enforcement of defaced plates. I'm a little confused about this statement that if you don't see them in the act of defacing, they get away with it. My understanding of how the laws of car maintenance work is that it is incumbent upon car owners to maintain their cars in safe condition, and that should naturally include maintaining readable license plates. So if people are going and painting over numbers or taping over numbers, which I've seen on my street, or covering them with materials that obscure it, how is that something that you're not capable of enforcing when you're incapable of enforcing when a vehicle has an out-of-date inspection?
Ms. Gonzalez, I was, again, misconstruing my answer. I said if they are actively defacing it, we can arrest them or issue them summons based on what they're doing. What I'm talking about defacement, I'm talking about the peeling off of the adhesive plastic that's on top, that blue. So you have one of the older plates, blue and white. And we've seen it even on the golden and blue plates where the adhesive and the actual coloring is coming off the plate. If we see anyone with a marker altering the numbers, that is forged instrument. We do arrest people for that. What I'm speaking about is anything where it seems like either it's a manufacturing issue or the weather. So we've seen it peel off, but you still see the letters on it. All right. We have to understand that enforcing the law is a very sensitive thing, right? We enforce the law based on what we see. And if we do see anyone purposely doing that to a license plate, we do arrest them because we've done it in the past. We've arrested people for altering temporary plates, changing the dates. If we see one of the metal plates where they go with a marker, which I have not seen in 17 and a half years on this job as a police officer, I have not seen anyone with a marker going over the metal plate itself. I've seen it on paper plates. I've seen them alter the plate itself and the date of expiration. I've seen them alter the registration piece of paper on it, but not the metal plate itself. If we do see that, we do take enforcement action, and we'll do whatever we need to do to enforce that. If we see a plate obstructed by a cover, like I said before, and we'll pull the vehicle over and we'll ask that person to take that cover off. If they take it off, then it is, you know, we've given them a warning, admonish. If they leave it on and they refuse to take it off, then they get summons for it, and then they have to go to court and fight the summons in court. Okay?
Okay, so when you say actively defacing, you don't mean in the act of defacing, you mean driving a vehicle that has a plate that was clearly deliberately defaced? Because when you said actively defacing, it sounded like you would only do anything about it if you saw someone defacing a plate. And I just want to clarify that that's not what you meant.
Well, like I said, if we see them, because that's the conversation I was having with Mr. White. If we see them actively damaging the plate, yes, we're going to take action. If it's that adhesive aspect of it, where we see the letterings falling off because of the adhesiveness, the manufacturing issue, we will address them with it and we will tell them to get new plates. And they have to go through the process. If we see that the plate was manually altered, in other words, they use a marker to change the 9 into an 8, that it's an automatic arrest. That's forged instrument. We will take action on that. If we see it, we will take action on that. If there's a plate cover, we will pull them over. We will give them the chance to rectify the situation by taking the plate cover off. Not everyone knows every law of every state. That is why it's very particular to New York State, right? New York State plate covers, because there's other states that do allow it. They do allow plate covers. So we have to educate people if that vehicle is going to be in New York City or New York State.
Thank you. We're going to move on because like I stated, we do want to continue. I know John Johnston has his hand up. After him, we're going to move on to the next topic. John?
Hi, Inspector. I have a question. For all these infractions, if you make, for the most serious one, if you make an arrest on that, what will the DA do if you make an arrest?
Well, I can't speak for the DA. I can only speak for the law enforcement aspect. We bring people to justice. It's up to the district attorney to prosecute, and it's up to the judge to give sentences, if any. But I cannot answer that question. I mean, if there's someone from the district attorney's office here that can speak to that, but we just bring people to justice.
And do you have enough officers in the 72nd precinct to handle transportation-related issues and the surge in crime happening with rapes, murders in all throughout the city?
Well, as far as the 72nd precinct, we have a total of 168 police officers and 1 detective, which is Detective McGrath. And we do attempt to handle as much as we can. And we do address the conditions based on the community concerns. So I'm not going to say we don't have enough officers. We do handle the job that we need to handle, and we do address conditions based on how we see them.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next item, which is safety, both in the streets and in transit and in our parks. So there have been some concerns about visible drug use, both at subway stations, in our park and in our streets, as well as trucks, big trucks, D.I. Castro, barreling down residential streets, and particularly since some of the traffic things were changed, and some recent accidents that unfortunately took place both here in Sunset Park and in other areas due to in residential streets. So I think we could address perhaps first the safety in transit and what are some of the things that are happening in our transit hubs, including buses, because I know we normally focus on trains, but there have been a few incidents on the bus, including one on the B35. So I know we have the 2 transit captains on.
Hey, how you doing? Captain Chung, District 34.
Hi, how are you? Can you just
I'm
tell us
good.
which stations you cover so that everybody knows?
So in Sunset Park area, I do cover 36th Street Station, 45th, 53rd, and 59th Street. Those are the 4 stations I do cover in transit District 34. And within our 28-day period, you're only taking 1 crime, and that's a robbery at 59th Street. That individual is already in jail, and he will stay in jail probably for the remainder of this year. All right.
Okay, and how about the issue that people are having with seeing people do drugs, and particularly in the back steps of 53rd Street, the other exit on
So any
52nd Street?
So, our 311 jobs, we don't see too many narcotics calls, but we are, if you do see someone using drugs, call 911, we will respond, we'll make arrests based on the circumstances, every situation is different. But just so everyone knows, we are, well, not us, but the MTA is installing additional cameras on the platforms. And my officers in the future will be monitoring those cameras, especially at 36th Street, 45th, 53, and 59th Street. We just installed 44 cameras just on the platform at 36th Street. There's also mezzanine cameras, and they're going to continue to install more of those cameras, to provide safety for everyone, make them feel safer. And we have additional resources in terms of officers, Patrol Services Bureau in the 7-2 precinct. They're providing us with officers to stand on the platform for high visibility. And that's 36th Street, 4553, 59 during the rush hours.
Thank you. And I know there was some issues, and it was brought up at previous meetings regarding the cameras and not being working on 36th Street when the unfortunate incident occurred, rather, because it wasn't an accident, it was an incident. So forgive my choice of words, back in April. So has all that been resolved? Because I know the community board as well as community members had concerns about that and the camera seemingly not working on that particular day.
So that is a iffy topic, but I guarantee you, since that incident, we are watching those cameras and they've never been down at 36th Street. And with the additional 44 cameras, we will have access to it eventually. But those cameras, I tell you right now, they're up and running, every one of them. In each of those 4 stations I'm covering, I have my desk officer, my sergeant or lieutenant, with another officer at the desk. They're monitoring those cameras and to make sure everything's going smoothly, everything's safe. We're still enforcing theft of service. If anyone's, that was a question raised up last time as well. And that's it.
Thank you. Captain Castro, do you want to address the issues of the trucks that are barreling down the streets? I think Cindy had that question as well.
Yeah, actually, I mean, the question relates, and I also serve on the Transportation Committee. One of the things since the 20th Street traffic pattern has changed, we've seen an increase in Windsor Terrace of these bigger trucks ending up on 19th and then coming down towards Vanderbilt and kind of getting stuck. And I know one of my neighbors a few weeks ago, there was actually a truck that turned and then dragged her vehicle as well as and sideswiped another vehicle and dragged them down the street, and then he drove away. This was like one of the big trucks that shouldn't be like right there by Captain John McKenna, the 4th park that's there at Vanderbilt and East 5th. So I wanted to ask whether you have been monitoring or seen sort of an uptick in traffic accidents taking place as a result of this sort of change in the traffic pattern in Windsor Terrace.
Based on the information I've gotten, no, we have not seen anything that jumps off the page. I will get back to you with the information as far as traffic itself, because I'll speak to my executive officer regarding what he may be seeing. But as far as the reports that I'm getting, I am not seeing anything that's jumping off the page. Again, the focus is always, the primary focus is on life itself or injuries to pedestrians or motorists. So, when I'm looking at these reports, I'm looking at, kind of sort of that type of accident where there's an injury or there's a pedestrian struck or fatality to that extent. But if they're reporting it, it should come up as a collision. If they're not supposed to be in that area, we can always send our traffic safety officers to that area, our NCOs, and they can address any commercial vehicle that comes down an improper road.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing trucks basically pass Terrace Place on the 19th and then go down towards Vanderbilt and then get stuck and having to like back up in that area. So if that's something that you can have just on your radar
Cin-
and be watching it.
I will,
appreciate
I
it.
will, we'll have them check, we'll have them look at it.
I just wanted to add, Cindy, that 53-foot trailers are illegal in New York City. So most of these trucks are not supposed to be on the streets of New York City. And the steps that need to be taken is they have to be filed with 311. But these trucks, if they're moving quickly, right? I mean, that's one of the challenges we have, but they're illegal. So anytime you see them, they're actually illegal and not supposed to be riding in New York City. And this is an enforcement issue. So again, it all comes back to enforcement.
Cindy, can you give me 19th and Vanderbilt? What's the other location you said? Sealy and Fifth?
Yeah, it's essentially like trucks that are pulling off the Prospect Expressway and then driving down 19th towards Terrace Place, towards, I guess, what is that? That's yeah, and then Sealy. It's that whole kind of they're just continuing down 19th and then they get stuck.
No worries. I'm gonna have my traffic safety officers go out there and take a look at it. I'll also advise Highway to let them know about the situation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, we also have, how have the incidents been in the park, DI Castro? We have had some concerns in the past about people hanging out, particularly on Fifth Avenue side of the park. Not necessarily loitering, but perhaps drinking.
So as far as the park itself, I have not seen an increase of any in crime in that area. We have issued quality of life summonses in that area. If you just want the numbers as far as what type of enforcement quality of life we've issued in that area. So overall for C summonses, which are open containers, disorderly conduct, refused lawful order, we've issued 40 summonses. For open container 19, consumption of alcohol 8, disorderly conduct 2, discount refused lawful order 1, and then the other ones are engaging in fighting, and then fail to maintain. Some of them are for business establishments. As far as oath summonses that we've issued in the 28 days, we've issued a total of 17. Again, most of them, 14 of them, unlawful consumption or possession of alcohol beverages. The other 3 are for failure to yield physical injury to a pedestrian, which falls under the oath.
Thank you. And then I'm going to skip 311 calls for now and get back to it. But community concerns, and this goes to both of the captains, there's been a perception citywide of increased crime in the subway. And Joan Body, who got off the call, kind of alluded to it earlier, but it seems like in our transit districts and our transit hubs, that has not been the case, because both of you have reported 1 robbery in the 4 stations in Sunset Park and no crimes in Prospect Park West and for Hamilton Parkway. So what do you attribute that to? Why here it's not as prevalent or is not as visible? Is that because you mentioned the cameras earlier and increased police presence?
So
is that what you attribute that to?
The cameras, but the increased police presence, just know that I cover 51 stations. Out of those 51 stations, they provided me with fixed posts, which is during the first platoon and second platoon. So the rush hours between 07 to 1100, and then 1600 to 1900. Those 37 stations, 2 officers are at all those stations out of my 51 at those hours every day. And that's because the additional resources that 1PP Patrol Services Bureau, the 7-2 precinct and other precincts provide me additional resources to provide for that additional presence. And that presence, that omnipresence, deters the crime. So that's why it's been so successful.
Okay, thank you for that. And in terms of enforcement activities, Castro, you went over that as well as both of the captains. So we'll go back to the 311 calls. As was alluded to earlier, there has been some issues about the 311 calls. I do think that you addressed that. So I am going to just open it up to see if there's any questions about safety in the transit hubs. any of the 311 responses, any concerns about enforcement activities in the community district, and as well as what it is that you both captains and Deputy Inspector Gonzalez say that we could, as a community, should be looking out for, both in terms of reporting things that we see. I know that Adam, and he was very brave, Adam, I wouldn't do that. I would never go and take that off someone, but I know sometimes you walk and you see things that are frustrating, but it is very dangerous to take matters into your own hand. So I would like to know what are some of the things that we could do. And I do see some questions, but if you guys want to answer that, and particularly in the subway, what it is that we could do to stay safe.
So in the Transit District 34 and any subway station, it's very important to pay attention. All right, I see a lot of people on their phones, not paying attention to surroundings, and that's what the perpetrators are looking for. People who are not paying attention in the station. As if a community, all of us, we pay attention what's going on with the surroundings, there'll be less crime throughout the city. That's my honest opinion.
Thank you. And I am going to let Deputy Inspector Castro speak. He did inform me he has at 8 o'clock. So he does want to just give some parting words and more contact. And again, people are welcome to join the next community council precinct as well, which would come up soon.
I'd just like to thank CB7 for inviting me to this meeting. As always, we're here to work together with the community, not apart from the community. I know everyone looks at enforcement as the only answer. That is not the only answer. Since we are working and sometimes the violations or infractions are being committed by community members, there is a period of education. There's a period of talking. I invite Community Board 7, like any other entity or organization, to join us when we do have outreach sessions or operations. National Night Out is another area that I would like to see. I see Synth affiliates at every event, but most of everybody from CB7 show up and support the community and support the NYPD, and let's work together because it's a community effort. It's not just the NYPD, it's everyone working together. And my door is always open to meet with any community member. My door is always open. So if you want to meet with me, by all means, shout me out, speak to my community affairs officers. I'm on the beaten path most days. I'm out there walking the beat. So if you see me and you have a concern, bring it up to me. You guys are the eyes and ears. You see it more than we see it, right? Because there's more of you than there are of us. Like I said, we have 168 cops and 1 detective. And we try to resolve every issue the best way we can for all parties, not just for one party, but for everyone. So whatever you guys need from us, we're here. We do events with Thanksgiving coming up. I wish everybody a great Thanksgiving, great holidays. We are going to have a turkey giveaway here that we do each and every year. So by all means, come and join us.
Thank you, Katie. I think your hand is up, so.
Thank you, Cynthia. There was I think the general call to action, Cynthia, that you had posed was around what actions we all can take. And I did want to go back to something that someone along the way had asked around the e-bikes and the lithium batteries and the increased rise of fires. Not too long ago, I think the last 2 weeks, are about luxury building, the city that caught fire. We've been dealing with fires in our neighborhood for a long time, and there's a lot of reasons, including like overcrowding and including illegal units. And then now we have, and now also this issue around the batteries. And so I wanted to know if just a perspective, like Cynthia, this is even for you, and also Jeremy, the community board, what are we doing to raise awareness of this issue? I know the city council is considering some different bills, but what can we do to keep our neighbors safe? I'm not directing this necessarily to just the NYPD, but I'm happy to have their perspective. And I also what are we doing to keep neighbors safe?
Thank you, Katie. It's a great thing. We actually have, Jeremy, you could correct me. I believe it was in April. We had the person from FDNY join us. We could certainly have them come back. They did an amazing presentation. FDNY has a fire education, and they did come to one of our community board meetings, and they did a very good presentation. It happened right after the big fire in the Bronx, and we were concerned about the doors that had to self-close. So we wanted to get information on that, but they actually did a wonderful presentation on resources. They also are available to do in person and give out information on how to get free fire alarms. So I will definitely contact them and maybe have them come back in light of especially the e-bike batteries and the lithium batteries to do some more education. So thank you for bringing that up. And I believe they came, I want to say in April, but it was right after the big fire in the Bronx where a lot of the African families had perished because the door didn't close after they left after they walked out of the building.
And maybe when there's the step that's taken to go to the point of sale to all these shops, when we get the list of all the shops that are selling electric bikes, especially in our neighborhood, if there's information that's being handed out, this can also be included.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And I'll follow up with the FDNY and Natasha and Jeremy for a meeting with them as well. John?
You know what? I think my question was for Inspector Castro, and I think he's already at his next meeting. So I guess I will wait till the next meeting with him to bring that up.
Okay. Are there any other questions from any of the board members? We still have our transit captains here. I do want to thank them for their work in keeping us safe in the transit, and no bus incidents for either one. I know there was something in Staten Island, but here, no.
We actually don't cover the buses. That's part of.
Okay.
You know.
Thank you for clarifying that.
A couple of hands up.
Okay. Sam, and then Sam.
Hi, thank you. Just a brief comment that I know wasn't mentioned is we were discussing 311, but I wanted to strongly or rather highly recommend that we utilize the 311 app. I use it often. I use it to identify potholes, to have vehicles remove those to the street. It keeps you updated with the complaint number, lets you know when the complaint is closed. So I would highly recommend using the 311 app on your smartphone. To the issue of the reduced incidents in our subways, specifically 36th, 45th, 53rd, and 59th, I would say that we would have to attribute that to the presence of the NYPD on our platforms. And in addition to them being on the platform, the conductor on the train announces there are NYPD officers available on this station if you need them. So I think that's made such a big difference. I ride the trains often. I see patrolmen on pretty much every train that I get on, and also see them at the platform. So thank you to the captain. Great job.
Thank you for the compliments, and my officers will continue doing that to make the public safe. You know, that's our job.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? And any of the concerns that were raised today? We know there's a lot of work that has to be done in the community. And I want to thank everyone for joining us in this joint meeting. There's a lot of concerns still that we still have to address. In particular, we will be following up with the exact statistics. I know a lot of statistics were shared today, but we will be following up on them. But we are going to follow up in particular with the big trucks and the education portion, because a lot of it is educating the community and letting them know what is and not, what is allowable and what isn't allowable, and have it given it to them in a language that they understand. Also, I just want to point out our councilwoman, Alexa Aviles, did do a 311 walk where Sam urged the use of the 311 app and actually showed like trigger words that could be used. I believe she's going to do another one of those. So I will follow up with her office, and perhaps other people could join that, because it was very informative for me as I was walking with her staff And we were looking at 311 concerns we had, and it didn't have to do with traffic. It had to do with like fallen trees and things of that nature. But we went and we actually did a 311 walk in the neighborhood. So perhaps that's something that we could offer again, where we could do a 311 walk, and they did educate us. To George Cardona's point, there was someone there from 311 that showed us how to put in a 311. And with Sam, when you use the app, you could send the picture at the same time. So they're able to see that really quickly. So maybe we could work on that and do one just for transportation issues, a 311 walk on transportation issues, because one 311 call doesn't make a difference. But if 5 or 6 are coming from people at the same time, I find they do take initiative quicker. And it shouldn't take 5 or 6 calls to do it, but whatever it is that we could do collectively, I think would be helpful. So if there's no other questions, Katie, is there anything you want to say, or John, before we end the meeting?
Thank you. Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you. I want to thank again Deputy Inspector Castro, Captain Chung, Captain Salim for joining us here today, as well as all the members of both boards and our attendees that came. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you on Wednesday at our community board meeting, which will take place at 6:30 and have a slew of topics for us to continue to discuss as a community.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Cynthia.
Cynthia.
That was an excellent
Thank
meeting.
you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Next Wednesday.
See you Wednesday.
Good night.
Good night.
Who's barking?
That's my dog Cosmo. He wanted to say good night too, Bart.